Hey everyone, I'm Camila, and I want to tell you about my life. I grew up without a lot of money, but my husband Jackson had a totally different childhood. His family was rich, and he even started his own successful business. I have a good job too, but I still feel connected to my middle-class background. The only problem is my mother-in-law Addison. Dealing with Addison was like trying to navigate through a storm. But Jackson's dad, Grayson, was great. Addison, though, enjoyed putting me down and making me feel small about my family's money situation. She criticized us in private and even in public. Jackson always had my back, but Addison's insults never stopped. It got so bad that I thought about leaving Jackson because I didn't want to deal with his family anymore. But Jackson's love and support kept me going. He was amazing, unlike his mom. With time, I got better at handling Addison's behavior. So when she showed up with a flashy wedding dress right after we booked the venue, it didn't surprise me. She proudly showed off the dress, asking us what we thought. Isn't it amazing? It's from that fancy bridal shop you guys couldn't afford with your wedding budget, she said, not hiding her dislike. When I mentioned that her dress was too fancy for the occasion, she glared at me, clearly upset. I felt really uncomfortable then, not knowing how to handle her extravagant behavior, especially since Jackson and I were planning a simple wedding with just 60 guests to save money. We didn't want to spend too much, so I found a simple wedding dress that fit our budget. But Addison's dress was way too flashy. It was so extravagant that it would definitely steal the spotlight from me at my own wedding. It was obvious she picked it on purpose, knowing it would make a big statement. When I gently suggested she wear something else, Addison got really mad. How dare you tell me what to wear? I spent $125,000 on this dress. Do you really think I'd waste that money? I'm wearing it, no questions asked. Jackson tried to step in, saying, Mom, listen to Camila. That dress isn't right for our small wedding. Please pick something more suitable. But Addison wouldn't change her mind. No way, Jackson. I love this dress. I'm not settling for some random dress like your wife. I have my home standards. It's my big day too as the mother of the groom, she insisted, ignoring how ridiculous she sounded. Jackson, surprised, argued back, Addison, it's not your big day. Stop trying to steal all the attention. You're not wearing that dress to our wedding. The argument got intense quickly. Addison refused to give up on the dress, leading to a heated exchange between her, Jackson, and Grayson. The tension got so bad that we had to leave early without resolving the issue. Jackson was frustrated, saying, I can't believe my mom would do this. She's being unreasonable. Maybe she shouldn't even come to the wedding. But kicking Addison out of the wedding could make things worse. If we disinvite her, she might make an even bigger scene. She doesn't keep promises and she does whatever she wants. We need to think of a smarter solution, I suggested, thinking about what might happen if we excluded her from such an important day. Jackson was frustrated too, admitting how badly his mother had treated my family and me over the years. I'm tired of her insults and disrespect. It has to stop. She can't ruin our wedding. So we agreed. We needed a plan that would keep Addison from causing trouble without making her suspicious or angry. As time passed, Addison stuck to her decision, leaving us to plan carefully to keep our wedding focused on our love, not her showing off. We all agreed that we needed a smart plan to handle the situation. So Jackson, Grayson, and I got together to figure it out. We were tired of her disruptions and all wanted to make sure she didn't take over our wedding. After talking it through, we came up with a plan and quietly started putting it into action, making sure Addison didn't catch on. We stopped talking to her about the dress and only gave her basic information about the wedding, which didn't bother her much since she was too busy trying to outshine me. Just a few days before the wedding, we were having dinner at my in-laws, and Addison couldn't contain her excitement. I can't wait for your wedding, Jackson. I've been thinking about it for so long. My dress and jewelry are all ready to shine. It's going to be such a special day, she said, clearly thrilled, though it was obvious she was most excited about showing herself off. It will be special, especially because I'll be marrying Camila. Jackson responded subtly, trying to bring the focus back to us, the real reason for the celebration. But Addison quickly made it about herself again. Sure, Camila will look nice, but next to me in my expensive dress, I doubt it. I spent a lot to make sure I stand out. Hearing this, I couldn't help but admire Addison's boldness, insisting she was better and planning to steal the spotlight from the bride on her big day. Jackson complimented Addison's dress to keep things calm. while I silently appreciated his support, squeezing his hand under the table. Grayson, always the wise and calming presence, played a crucial role in our plan. He gently teased Addison, pointing out how strange it was for her to make such big plans for a wedding that wasn't hers. "Addison, you're really going all out for a wedding that's not even yours. Shouldn't we focus on the couple getting married?" His remarks subtly reminded everyone of the real reason for the celebration, steering the conversation away from Addison's self-centered plans without causing more trouble. This clever move was an important part of our strategy to handle the situation gracefully, making sure the wedding stayed a happy occasion for us and our guests, not just a platform for Addison's ego. As the wedding drew near, Addison insisted on having only the best makeup artist for herself. "For my son's big day, I need top-notch treatment. After all, I'm the mother of the groom," she declared. She was determined not to mingle with guests she felt were beneath her, especially while wearing her expensive jewelry, fearing it might get stolen by those unfamiliar with such luxury. Grayson had a clever idea. "Why not get ready at home? It's safer and more comfortable, especially with all your plans," he suggested. Addison loved the idea of making a grand entrance and praised Grayson's thoughtfulness, unaware of our hidden agenda. Grayson exchanged a knowing look with us, showing that our plan was going smoothly. Caught up in her own excitement, Addison didn't realize she was falling into our trap. The thought of her surprise on the wedding day brought quiet satisfaction to Jackson and me. Even though I wish I could see her reaction in person, knowing the plan was in motion allowed me to focus on the joy of the upcoming wedding, feeling a sense of relief. While there was a slight worry about the plan being discovered, Jackson and our supportive friends helped ease those concerns. Everything was organized perfectly, reigniting my excitement for the special day. After months of stress, I felt genuinely thrilled about our wedding for the first time in a while. It was shaping up to be a celebration of our love, free from any outside drama. As the wedding morning arrived, bright and beautiful, it felt like the start of a new chapter we had been eagerly waiting for. The weather was perfect, adding to the joy of the day. Grayson, my amazing father-in-law, was the first to arrive at the venue, well before the rest of us. He stopped by to check on me, and despite my nerves, he'd assured me that everything was going according to plan. "Don't worry, dear," he reassured me, explaining his early arrival was due to Addison's difficult behavior. "Her makeup artist won't be here for another hour. We have plenty of time." I felt immensely grateful for Grayson's support. "Thank you so much, Grayson. I can't express how much this means to me," I told him. He smiled warmly, reminding me that I was now part of the family and assuring me that the day would unfold just as we had envisioned. His presence was a comfort, especially considering the challenge of dealing with Addison as my mother-in-law. I felt fortunate to have Grayson by my side. After checking in on me, Grayson made his way to where Jackson and I were getting ready for the ceremony. The day was shaping up to be everything I had ever dreamed of. I'll always remember the look of love on Jackson's face as I walked towards him, escorted by my uncle. Both of us were overcome with emotion, surrounded by our closest friends and family, with Grayson's supportive presence adding to the moment. As for Addison, her grand entrance didn't go as planned. Dressed in her expensive gown and covered in diamonds, she expected all eyes to be on her. But when she arrived at the venue, she was in for a surprise. It was empty. Confused and a bit panicked, she called Jackson, her voice filled with disbelief. "Jackson, what's going on? Why is nobody here?" she asked, clearly caught off guard by the turn of events. Addison frantically searched for us at the venue, puzzled by the absence of familiar faces. Jackson broke the news. She wasn't at the right place because she hadn't been invited to the real wedding. Her confusion quickly turned to disbelief, eliciting laughter and amusement from our side. Even Grayson struggled to contain his laughter, finding the situation quite amusing. As Addison pressed for answers, insisting she was speaking with Jackson and not me, her confusion grew deeper. Jackson calmly explained that although the venue she was at had been booked initially, we had chosen a different location for our ceremony. Learning that the wedding had already happened without her left Addison in disbelief, questioning why she hadn't been informed earlier. Jackson, growing impatient, pointed out that her exclusion was intentional, a decision made to prevent the disruptions her presence might cause. Despite his explanation, Addison couldn't believe that her own son would go to such lengths to keep her from his wedding. The conversation heated up as Jackson confronted her about the unnecessary drama surrounding her dress and her attempts to steal the spotlight from the bride. His firm stance surprised Addison, who struggled to come to terms with the consequences of her actions. Jackson's firm assertion that the day belonged to him and his wife, not to his mother, marked a clear end to the dispute, highlighting the significance of the occasion for the couple over any individual's desire for attention. Jackson emphasized that he would no longer tolerate Addison's disruptive behavior, making it clear that the wedding day was about him and his wife, not anyone else. After delivering this message, he ended the call. Despite Addison's continued attempts to reach him and multiple calls to Grayson, we went on to celebrate our reception surrounded by loved ones, undisturbed by the unfolding drama. During a moment alone, I noticed a call from Addison on my phone. Preparing myself, I answered, only to be met with accusations and insults. She blamed me for her exclusion from the wedding, accusing me of manipulating her son and labeling me a gold digger, envious of her potential to outshine me on my own wedding day. I calmly refuted her claims with facts, explaining that Jackson makes his own decisions based on what he believes is right, and his choice to exclude her was his own, though I did not try to influence him. Undeterred, Addison threatened to crash the reception, claiming she was already outside. I brushed off her threats with a mix of disbelief and indifference, reassuring her that she would find no support here. Returning to the reception, I braced myself for whatever scene might unfold. As expected, Addison's attempt to enter the venue quickly escalated. Dressed in her extravagant gown and denied entry by security, she epitomized frustration and entitlement, her actions bordering on the absurd. Rather than garnering sympathy, this spectacle only reaffirmed our decision to keep her away from our celebration. The guests, aware of the situation, rallied behind us, leaving no room for Addison's theatrics to disrupt our special day. Her attempt to steal the spotlight didn't end in triumph, but in a public display of her own making, starkly contrasting with the joy and unity inside. The disturbance Addison caused outside the venue quickly caught the attention of our guests, prompting everyone to witness the source of the commotion. When Jackson came across his mother causing a scene, his frustration reached its peak. He confronted her, dismayed by her refusal to respect his wishes and her insistence on blaming his wife. "Mom, what are you doing here? I clearly told you that you weren't invited. Why can't you understand that?" Jackson's patience wore thin as Addison played the victim, accusing him of being manipulated by his wife, whom she labeled as jealous. "Mom, listen to yourself. My wife isn't the problem here. It's you, trying to overshadow her with that extravagant dress and jewelry. You knew she had a modest budget. Your actions were meant to belittle her," Jackson argued, hoping to make her realize the selfishness of her behavior. Addison, seeking support, turned to Grayson, hoping he would defend her actions. But Grayson, equally shocked by her behavior, stood by Jackson. "That dress isn't just any dress, Addison. It's practically a wedding gown. How can you not see how inappropriate your actions are? Look around, no one agrees with you," Grayson pointed out, his disappointment clear. Addison's attempt to justify her choice by insulting Camila's family and guests only made the situation worse. "They don't get it because they're from a different background," she argued, clinging to her misguided beliefs about maintaining her supposed class. But Grayson had had enough. "That's it, Addison. I won't let you insult my daughter-in-law and her family any longer. You've crossed the line this time," he declared, standing firm against her unfounded accusations and sense of entitlement. The conflict highlighted the sharp contrast between Addison's self-centeredness and the united front presented by Jackson, Grayson, and the supportive guests. Her attempt to crash the wedding, instead of gaining sympathy, only reinforced her isolation and confirmed the wisdom of excluding her from the ceremony. Grayson's firm defense of my family was a powerful moment for me, showing the depth of support and love I had found within Jackson's family, despite Addison's disruptive presence. This act of solidarity, affirming me as part of the family, was deeply touching, bringing me close to tears. It strengthened my belief that choosing to align my life with Jackson and his family, separate from Addison, was one of the best decisions I had ever made. Shocked and angry at Grayson's rebuke, Addison couldn't understand how her husband could speak against her, especially to defend what she saw as outsiders. She held tight to her beliefs of being superior, criticizing the wedding and our union. But Grayson's response was surprising and definitive. He expressed regret not for our wedding, but for his own with Addison, admitting their marriage was a mistake due to her unbearable behavior. Then he announced his intention to divorce her, leaving Addison speechless. Grayson wasn't alone in his decision. Jackson also cut ties with his mother, prioritizing the well-being of his wife and their future together over Addison's toxic influence. This decision showed a commitment to shield our new family from further turmoil. Addison was shocked and disbelieving. Her reliance on Grayson and Jackson for financial support had been a pillar of her extravagant lifestyle. Grayson's mention of divorce, along with the prenuptial agreements in place, meant Addison stood to lose not only her family but also the financial security she had taken for granted. Her lavish spending, highlighted by the purchase of the expensive dress, had been unsustainable on her own, relying instead on her husband's wealth. The news of impending divorce and our decision to cut ties with Addison marked a turning point for her. The consequences went beyond losing family connections to a harsh financial reality. Her once secure future, buoyed by wealth and status, now looked uncertain, with the protective clauses of prenuptial agreements leaving her with little to claim. This sudden change in circumstances served as a sobering reminder of the cost of her actions and attitudes, highlighting the transformative impact of Grayson and Jackson's decisions on our collective future. Jackson, Grayson, and I had discussed the situation thoroughly, recognizing the need to set boundaries to protect our new family. Grayson had been considering separation from Addison due to long-standing unhappiness, while Jackson and I were determined to shield our relationship from her toxic influence. Addison, taken aback by the realization that her actions had real consequences, had to face the fallout publicly. Her pleas for leniency, framed as an overreaction to a single dress incident, were met with firm rebuttals. It was evident to everyone, especially Jackson and Grayson, that her behavior went far beyond one incident. They pointed out her consistent mistreatment of me as the underlying problem, dismissing her claims of unfairness as baseless. In a last-ditch effort to gain sympathy, Addison turned to me with tears, pleading for forgiveness. She clung to me, painting herself as a remorseful victim of circumstances. Yet her plea lacked sincerity. It quickly turned sour as she resumed name-calling and accused me of tearing her family apart. Her abrupt shift from fake remorse to open hostility only reinforced our decision to distance ourselves from her. Her failure to offer a genuine apology or acknowledge the impact of her actions further alienated her, not just from me but from everyone present. The guests, initially watching quietly, grew increasingly disapproving as Addison's true colors emerged once more. This scene marked a significant moment for our family. It wasn't just about keeping Addison at arm's length. It was about reaffirming our commitment to respect, unity, and the well-being of our shared future. Addison's failed attempt to reconcile, quickly overshadowed by her return to blame and manipulation, only strengthened our determination. The way forward was evident, marked by a united stance against toxicity and a shared commitment to nurturing a supportive and loving environment free from past grievances. Jackson acted swiftly. Without allowing Addison a chance to argue, he instructed security to escort her out. Meanwhile, both sides of the family and our friends openly criticized her behavior. It was a moment of validation as we watched her being escorted away, allowing us to resume our celebration surrounded by genuine supporters. The very next day, Grayson took decisive action. He returned home only to inform Addison to leave their shared residence and had his lawyers serve her with divorce papers. Her attempts to sway Grayson with tears, screams, and threats in front of the lawyer were futile. When she attempted to approach us, seeking an ally or a way to disrupt our peace, we made a conscious choice not to engage, safeguarding our new life together from her drama. Our phones and social media became Addison-free zones, eliminating any avenue for her to reach out. As for Addison's outcome, it was swift and fair. The divorce left her in financial hardship, her attempts at manipulation proving futile. Her pleas for help went unanswered, forcing her to face the consequences of her actions alone. Eventually, she returned to her hometown, hoping to rebuild her life and reputation, seeking employment and a fresh start. These developments brought us profound relief and closure. With Addison's turbulent influence no longer present, our lives thrived. We hope she finds a path forward that keeps her away from us, allowing us to move on from this chapter without further discord.
I was very sick before, almost died, but I got better and felt like I got a second chance at life. Now, I want to start fresh, but I don't want to take care of an old lady. I helped my husband recover from being sick by donating something, but he never said thank you. Instead, he gave me a card for a divorce lawyer. It didn't really surprise me because he's been going out a lot since he got better. Now I'm the one who's sick. They say I have stomach cancer, but it's not too bad yet. I need surgery and chemotherapy. I'm really scared, and I can't believe my husband is leaving me like this. All the love and trust I had for him are gone. The toughest part is that he's the only dad our daughter Kate knows. I feel bad for her, but I'm too tired to fix things with him because I have to focus on fighting this disease. A month later, my husband called me a lot, being really aggressive, but I didn't answer. Then he surprised me by coming to my hospital room and telling me something shocking. My name is Christy Young, and I'm a 29-year-old housewife. I've been married to Mike, who's a bit older than me, for 5 years. We have a cute 5-year-old daughter named Kate. I used to work full-time even after we got married, but I quit my job when I took a break to have Kate. I wanted to take it easy and raise her, but because of money problems, I had to start working again when Kate could go to daycare. Luckily, my sister-in-law, Lisa, is the boss at an apparel company, and she hired me. Even though I'm family, I wasn't treated specially at work. The atmosphere was nice, and there were other moms, so it was easy to talk about taking care of kids and taking time off for sudden illnesses. I'm really thankful I got a job in such a good place. But it was really hard to manage work, taking care of the house, and looking after Kate. In the morning, I made breakfast and lunch for my husband, sent him off to work, took Kate to daycare, and then went to my job. After work, I picked up Kate, went shopping, did chores at home, bathed Kate, and made dinner. After I finished making food for Kate, my husband came home, so I cooked dinner for him. Even though my days were busy, my husband didn't help much with house chores or taking care of Kate. Even when Kate was sick in the morning, he didn't seem to care and would still ask for his breakfast. When I needed him to do the grocery shopping because I had to work late, he complained about being tired from work. I was tired too, but I didn't have the energy to argue, so I ended up doing everything on my own. Our lives changed suddenly when my husband was told to get a detailed health check after his company's checkup showed some bad results. He didn't want to get retested because he felt okay, but he started feeling uncomfortable with unexplained bruises and bleeding gums. It would be bad if he ignored it, and it turned out to be a serious illness. We had to think about Kate's future, so I asked him to get a thorough checkup, and it turned out he had leukemia. Why is this happening to us? He was surprised to hear a disease name he knew. But nowadays, leukemia is not a hopeless condition. Many people get better with treatments like chemotherapy and bone marrow transplants. I decided to support my husband, who was feeling really down, and stay with him during the treatment. He took a break from work and went to the hospital right away. Meanwhile, I had to handle my job, take care of the house, look after Kate, and support my husband's treatment. I got worn out before he did. The stress from being in the hospital made him angry at me even more than before. And that was one of the reasons. I knew he was upset about the situation, but honestly, I was tired from working, taking care of Kate, doing chores, and visiting the hospital in my free time. That's when Lisa, my sister-in-law, offered to help. "Why did you come live with me? I can help with the housework and take care of Kate." She was the boss at a company, and I knew she was always busy with work. She was hands-on and involved in sales, not just giving orders to others. This made it easier for the staff to share their thoughts. I knew she had a lot on her plate. "I really can't trouble you," I said. "You're busy too," Lisa said. "If you get too tired, Kate will suffer the most, right? I'll help Mike as much as I can. You should lean on those who can help you now," Lisa said firmly, and I couldn't stop my tears. I was worried about Mike, Kate's future, and my own health. Lisa's presence was a huge relief, and her encouraging words comforted me. Mike's parents had already passed away, and Lisa lived alone in her parents' big house. I always thought it was too big for one person. I didn't want to sell it because it holds memories of my parents, but I was glad she invited us to stay there. You two can come. She warmly welcomed me and Kate. Living with Lisa was really nice. We always got along, and it felt like having a real sister. Lisa, who lived alone for a long time, was good at doing housework. She actively helped, making my life much easier than before. During that time, there was hope for Mike's treatment. I was found to be a good match to donate bone marrow for his transplant. When Mike got diagnosed with leukemia, Lisa and I got tested to be donors. Finding a matching donor is not easy, but the chances are better with siblings. We were sad when we learned that Lisa's marrow wasn't a match. But when we found out that mine could help Mike, he was really happy. I had to stay in the hospital for a few days to give bone marrow. During that time, I had to take a break from work and couldn't take care of Kate. It was tough for Lisa, but she didn't show any annoyance. Thanks a lot for helping my brother. I'll do everything I can to support you, so don't worry. Just take care of yourself now. Lisa encouraged me. I went through surgery to extract bone marrow for my husband. After the surgery, Mike had to stay in a special room to avoid infections and rest. I left the hospital a few days later, and thanks to Lisa's kindness, I took a few more days off work before going back. The stem cells transplanted into Mike seemed to be working well. After a few weeks, he moved to a regular hospital room. When I brought our daughter Kate to visit Mike, there was a nurse in the room. Mike was happy to see Kate after a long time. Mr. Young is getting better. He's still young and strong, so if he keeps improving, he might go back to work soon. Thank you very much, as always, the nurse said with a smile and left. Mike's condition got better, and he was able to leave the hospital a few months later. He still needed to rest at home, but the four of us, including Lisa, started living together in my in-laws' house. I had to stay in the hospital for a few days to give bone marrow. During that time, I had to take a break from work and couldn't take care of Kate. It was tough for Lisa, but she didn't show any annoyance. Thanks a lot for helping my brother. I'll do everything I can to support you, so don't worry. Just take care of yourself now. Lisa encouraged me. I went through surgery to extract bone marrow for my husband. After the surgery, Mike had to stay in a special room to avoid infections and rest. I left the hospital a few days later, and thanks to Lisa's kindness, I took a few more days off work before going back. The stem cells transplanted into Mike seemed to be working well. After a few weeks, he moved to a regular hospital room. When I brought our daughter Kate to visit Mike, there was a nurse in the room. Mike was happy to see Kate after a long time. Mr. Young is getting better. He's still young and strong, so if he keeps improving, he might go back to work soon. Thank you very much, as always, the nurse said with a smile and left. Mike's condition got better, and he was able to leave the hospital a few months later. He still needed to rest at home, but the four of us, including Lisa, started living together in my in-laws' house. Maybe because I'd pushed myself too hard, my health started getting worse. Eating became difficult, and Lisa noticed I might have lost weight. At this point, Mike had almost fully recovered and was back to work. Even though I didn't have to take care of Mike anymore, the chores and looking after Kate didn't decrease. Even when I wasn't feeling well, Mike, who had a lot of energy again, started going out alone more on his days off. He didn't seem to notice I was unwell and didn't offer to help with the chores. When I asked him where he was going and who he was with, he got mad and said, "I have a private life too." Eventually, the stress made my stomach hurt all the time, and Lisa suggested I get a full checkup. Since Mike had been really sick before, I thought it would be good to catch any issues early for Kate's sake. This time, the doctors found out I had stomach cancer. Luckily, it seemed to be slow growing, but I still needed to go to the hospital and have painful chemotherapy. When I suddenly had to go to the hospital, Kate got worried. But her dad was out, so he couldn't comfort her. Instead, Lisa, my sister-in-law, stayed with Kate so I could get ready for the hospital. While I was getting ready, Lisa took Kate out for some shopping. While I was quietly getting ready, my husband Mike came home. What's happening? Are you going on a trip? I was upset because he seemed so carefree. I have stomach cancer. I've been feeling sick, so I went for a checkup today. That's what the doctors found. I need to stay in the hospital. Hospitalized. What about the house? Are you leaving it all to my sister? I was surprised that his first worry was not about my health. Well, this is just great, huh? Let's get a divorce. I was confused and shocked by his sudden request. I had always taken care of him when he was sick. And now that I'm the one who's sick, he wants to leave me. I almost died once, but I got better, and it feels like I got a new chance at life. I want to start fresh, and I don't want to take care of an old lady. Even though I helped Mike recover by being his donor, he never said thank you. Instead, he gave me a divorce lawyer's card. You don't even wear makeup at home. I can't see you as a woman anymore. I'm busy with work, chores, and taking care of Kate. I don't have time for makeup. That's just an excuse. Plus, you have cancer now. I can't handle that. I was surprised by Mike's angry demand to sign divorce papers quickly. I was already worried about the cancer. Despite feeling frustrated and anxious, I wasn't shocked. Since Mike got better, he started going out a lot, and I felt suspicious. With this illness, all my love and trust for him disappeared. What hurt the most was that, for Kate, he was her only dad. I felt bad about making her a child of a single parent, but with the cancer battle ahead, I didn't have the energy to fix things with Mike. Now, we're just like strangers. Mike had a satisfied smile. Is it done? Don't just barge in like that. You're taking too long. Suddenly, a new young woman showed up at the door. She had bold makeup and a stylish dress. She looked beautiful, but when I looked closely, I recognized her face. Are you the nurse from Mike's hospital? It was a bit hard to tell because she wasn't in her uniform, but she was the nurse who took care of my husband. Apparently, she became his girlfriend at some point. Yes, that's me. I took care of him a lot when he was sick, more than you ever did, Mike said proudly. I was shocked by what he said. Taking care of a sick person is what nurses are supposed to do. It felt unfair to be compared to her in that way. Leave this house right now. This is my family's home. Mike said firmly. Yes, it's my husband's family home, but it's now in Lisa's name, my sister-in-law. If I divorce Mike, Lisa, and I will become strangers. It's sad to part with Mike, but it's even sadder to be separated from Lisa, who is kind, reliable, and has a good relationship with my daughter Kate. But there's nothing I can do about it. I packed my suitcase with only the important stuff. Besides getting ready for the hospital, I no longer love my husband, and I want to leave this situation as soon as possible. While I was getting ready quietly, Lisa and Kate, who had gone shopping, came back. We're home. Oh, do we have a visitor? Lisa looked surprised to see a lady she didn't know, and Kate, sticking close to Lisa, seemed confused, so I said clearly, I'm going to break up with Mike. Lisa looked just as surprised as I felt. Then, like she figured something out, she gave Kate some snacks she had just bought and told her to eat them in the other room. With only grown-ups around, Lisa stared at my husband right away. What's going on, Mike? Mike looked a bit scared when Lisa, not me, talked to him. He's leaving me to start a new life with that lady over there. Since you and I won't be family anymore, he wants me to go away. Lisa couldn't believe what I said. Christy is having a hard time and you? How selfish can you be? You're the one who should leave. Never show your face to me again. Lisa scolded Mike, who snorted and left the house. The lady looked down at me, smirked, and followed Mike. After they left, Lisa looked at me with a sorry expression. I felt bad for making her, who did nothing wrong, feel like that. Please don't be upset. You've helped me so much, Lisa, and I can't thank you enough. I felt a bit better knowing Lisa had firmly cut ties with Mike. Even if you break up with Mike, I'll always be on your side, Christy. We left the house we lived in before Mike got sick. Since Lisa told Mike to leave, he had no place to go, but he probably planned to live with that lady. Even with insurance and help, Mike might not have much money left after his serious illness. Well, it's not my concern anymore since we'll be strangers. Even though we weren't married anymore, Lisa was still helping me. I needed to go to the hospital, and I thought about leaving Kate with my parents, but I didn't know what to do about transferring her to a new kindergarten. When Lisa said, "I'll take care of her," I know Kate will be worried without her mom, and changing schools will make her even more worried. My job is stable right now. I decided to trust her. About a month after I was in the hospital, my phone rang. It was my ex-husband, Mike, and of course, I didn't answer. Even though I ignored it many times, Mike kept calling. When I told Lisa, who came to see me, she said she also got calls and ignored them. But he apparently showed up at her in-laws' house. He insisted on seeing me, but she sent him away, saying it was impossible since I was in the hospital. Don't pay attention if he says anything. It's too late for him to realize your worth now. Lisa's words made me feel stronger. After Lisa left, saying she's going home for today, Mike showed up in my hospital room. "Why are you here?" I didn't tell Mike which hospital I was in. He didn't even ask. "I went to my parents' house today. I saw my sister leaving with flowers, so I thought she might be visiting you." Apparently, he followed Lisa. Mike's persistence was scary, and I was confused about what he wanted. Then he hugged me. My illness came back. It turned out Mike's leukemia had returned. Even though remission is possible with a bone marrow transplant, it doesn't guarantee there won't be a recurrence. So, can you be a donor again? I was surprised by his bold request. I was fighting a serious illness, cancer, and my ex-husband who left me came back as soon as he got sick again. It felt too convenient. "I don't care. Isn't it your fault?" "What do you mean? Didn't you have someone who supported you more than I did?" Mike looked regretful when he heard me. His girlfriend broke up with him as soon as she found out about his illness. She said she could handle work, but not take care of a sick person in her personal life. "You're the only one I can rely on now." Mike begged for my help, but I told him firmly I really don't want to. "Are you going to leave me again when I'm sick? You were the one who left me first, right?" Mike didn't know what to say to my response. "And I'm talking to a lawyer about you." "A lawyer?" "Oh, right. Child support for Kate. I'll make sure you pay. But I'm sick too." Our argument continued, and a doctor noticed the commotion and came into the room. The doctor stopped Mike, who was trying to grab me, and took him away. Mike was later handed over to the police. After being questioned, a restraining order was issued against him. Lisa came back to my room after hearing the commotion. After learning the details, she was disgusted by Mike's selfishness. I asked Lisa to testify, and after talking to my lawyer, I decided to claim compensation from Mike and his girlfriend. Mike was very hesitant, but his girlfriend agreed to pay immediately, like a severance payment. Since then, I've been slowly getting better. Lisa has been supporting me a lot, and even though Kate is still young, she's been cheering me on without being selfish. The cancer was taken out successfully, and there's no sign it spread. On the other side, Mike is still looking for a donor and seems scared every day. He managed to pay me the compensation by using up his savings, but it looks like he won't be able to afford child support for Kate. Because he can't pay child support, he's not allowed to visit, so he seems to be dealing with his illness by himself. I still have a good relationship with Lisa. After leaving the hospital, I thought I shouldn't bother her anymore, and I was thinking of moving out with Kate. But she got mad at me, saying I shouldn't think about unnecessary things. After recovering from being sick, she told me to spend freely until I saved enough money. I took advantage of her kindness and lived with her for a while, with the three of us. Since Kate really likes Lisa, we eventually decided to rent an apartment nearby. Even after saving enough money, we go back and forth between each other's houses. And now we have a relationship like best friends. I went through a tough breakup with Mike and got sick. But there are still people like Lisa who have been there for me all along. I might make Kate feel lonely, but I hope she grows up to be a strong, kind, and fair woman like Lisa. And I want us to continue getting along well in the future.
Emily saw it. You know, you were at a restaurant bar planning a trip with another woman. Oh, I see. And so what? Even when caught cheating, my husband Donald wouldn't drop his defiant attitude. In a moment, what we had built over 15 years crumbled away. In this day and age, I was a full-time homemaker, living with his parents just like every other year. I had given up the job I loved at a publishing company where I felt fulfilled, and now I spent half of the week accompanying my parents to the hospital and adjusting meals according to everyone's schedule. I was living a life much like a housemaid. After getting married, I had no time for myself. The only place I could relax was in our bedroom, even in this spacious house. Despite all this, I had chosen this life because I wanted to be with my husband. The option of leaving never crossed my mind, so when my adulterous husband said, "We can get a divorce, you know," I was at a loss for words, feeling more amazed than angry. This is the story of me, Sophie Johnson, turning 40 this year, leaving my husband Donald after 15 years of marriage, and starting my life from scratch. It all began 2 months ago on the 25th. That day was payday for Donald, who worked at an electronics manufacturer. Usually, his salary would be deposited into our joint account. I would use that money to pay our monthly bills and give him an allowance in the evening. However, 2 months ago, his salary wasn't deposited into our joint account. I thought there must have been some technical glitch, so when he got home in the evening, I asked him about it. "What do you mean you changed the deposit account without saying anything to me?" He had switched the account to his personal one. "But what about our payments? These bills are due on the 27th. I couldn't keep up with a sudden change and just thought of immediate concern. "Just let me know how much you need, and I'll transfer that amount into the joint account," he said, taking off his suit with his back turned to me. He wouldn't even look me in the eyes. "So why did you change it?" I couldn't think of any reason. In the 15 years we've been together, we had never changed the account. We were saving in our joint account, so it wouldn't be a problem if his transfer was late. It's not that our bills would fall behind. Maybe I didn't need to press the issue, but I couldn't help wondering, why didn't he trust me with our finances? Did I do something wrong? I didn't remember overspending, but I thought maybe I had unknowingly upset him. If so, I needed to apologize. That's what I thought when I asked him. But it seems like he thought I was blaming him. He threw his freshly removed shirt onto the couch and glared at me. "It's my hard-earned money, isn't it?" "Yes, it is. But why do I need your permission to use it?" What? I couldn't understand any of his words. I've been giving him a $500 allowance every month, but that was just a temporary arrangement. If his expenses piled up, I would give him more. I asked him what he spent his money on, but I'd never refused to give him more when he needed it. As a stay-at-home wife, there have been times when I asked if I could buy something I wanted, but the reverse never happened. "I don't need dinner today." "What?" "But I already prepared." "Never mind, I'll eat out." He got bent out of shape, grabbed his car keys, and went out again. He seemed strange. For the past 15 years, we've never had issues over money. But suddenly, he starts saying it's his money, while cleaning up the food I had prepared. I was upset at my husband's selfish actions. I was frustrated that despite having food at home, he chose to eat out anyway because now he was in charge of the finances. From that moment, he began eating out every night and coming home late at night after I fell asleep. Also, the number of days he told me he was staying at work overnight increased. The fight had completely escalated. Even when we were together, we didn't talk more than necessary. As time passed, it was hard to find a chance to make up, and I started blaming myself. We'd never had a fight last this long before. It was a minor issue that he changed the bank account without consulting me. If he wants to manage the finances, that's fine. After about 2 weeks of awkwardness, I began to reconsider like that. Then one day, I received a message from Emily, who was my colleague when I worked at the publishing company. "Hey, how are you doing? How about lunch soon?" Emily's message was a welcome surprise. We used to go out for drinks after work and spend our days off together when we were single. Now, with families of our own, we didn't contact each other as much but still tried to meet at least once or twice a year. Her invitation came at a good time, and I agreed readily. 2 days later, in the afternoon, we were sitting in a cafe in the next town. "So they moved into the care facility, huh?" "Yeah, both of them in the same place." Emily asked how things were going, and I told her about my parents-in-law moving into a nursing home a few months ago. "I know I shouldn't say this, but it's a good thing. It must be a relief for you." She looked pleased, knowing how much I had been struggling to find time for myself. She seemed relieved now. "Well, I do have to get their clothes, visit, and accompany them to their doctor's appointments, but still, my life has become a lot easier. This was the first time since I was single that I was able to casually make time to meet with a friend. You're such a dutiful daughter-in-law. Is Donald still hands-off? Yes, he seems to want to do nothing on his days off. He never wanted to go anywhere on his days off. In these 15 years, we've never even gone shopping together. Her husband is diligent. He picks her up in his car when it rains and sometimes even does the shopping for her. He never changed at all. Well, since I am a stay-at-home wife, he could at least take care of his own parents. Emily never thought highly of my husband. When we got married, we both had jobs, but he never helped with the household chores. On days when I was too tired to do housework, he found it unbelievable and suggested I become a stay-at-home wife. I didn't want to quit, but I resigned as he suggested, becoming a full-time homemaker. Soon after, I was asked to live with his parents, and I ended up taking care of them. The reason I couldn't talk back to my husband was because of the significant difference in our incomes. He is 8 years older than me, already held a position at his company, and his income was more than double mine. Can you earn as much as I do? If you can, I wouldn't mind quitting. He'd say things like that, leaving me speechless. I had discussed my true desire of not wanting to quit my job with Emily, even crying on the phone, overwhelmed by having no time for myself. I understand why she holds a negative view of him. It's because of my venting. After a while, the warm vegetable salad we ordered arrived. As she served it on smaller plates, she spoke again. So, how are things with him? Upon being asked, I thought for a while and nodded affirmatively. I had actually come to discuss our big fight, but I didn't want him to be seen in a worse light. Emily paused, holding the serving tongs, and stared at me as I managed only to nod and smile, trying not to arouse suspicion. She stopped serving the salad midway. I'm sorry I asked it in the wrong way. Sophie, things aren't going well with him, are they? Emily's words made it seem like she knew something. I was left flustered and unable to respond as she started talking about something that had happened a few days ago. She recounted being at a dining bar near her office for a work after party. While heading to the restroom, she passed a man in the aisle who turned out to be my husband. He didn't seem to recognize her, so she decided against calling out to him. But noticing that he was in casual clothes made her wonder if he was with me. After leaving the restroom, she decided to take a look at where he was seated. What she saw was him having drinks with a woman who wasn't me. It hit me instantly. He's cheating on you. They were sitting close together, bodies touching as they drank. Was that really my husband? I couldn't believe it. He hadn't come home that day due to working overtime, so there was no reason for him to be in casual clothes. Moreover, he seemed genuinely busy lately. Did he even have the time for cheating in his current state? Although we've been on bad terms recently, I couldn't imagine him resorting to cheating. I just don't see him as that kind of person. Sensing my thoughts, she sighed and added, for the upcoming long weekend, he mentioned going to a place in Malibu. He was showing information about the accommodations on his phone and mentioned something about a prime-grade steak dinner. You could probably find the hotel if you search from there. She started searching for the hotel on her phone, while at the cafe I was still hoping it was just her misunderstanding. However, as soon as I got home, I started looking through his clothes. I don't remember how many clothes he has, so I wouldn't know how many of what item were missing, but I did notice that 2 or 3 of his favorite clothes were missing. Until last year, he would immediately wear them after washing, and they were always at the front of the drawer when opened. But now, they were nowhere to be found, even after searching every corner, the back of the closet, and the drawers of rarely used cabinets, literally everywhere. The only thing that came to mind was him working overtime and even on weekends due to his busy schedule, telling me he had spent a night in the company's restroom because he missed the last train. As I stood in front of the closet, the sound of an incoming email came from my pocket. It was a message from Emily. The email included the URL of a hotel in Malibu. As I stood there in a daze, I slowly pressed the link and a stay plan with a dinner including prime-grade meat was displayed. I felt dizzy, like I was having a bad dream. There was a part of me that still wanted to believe in him. But not finding his favorite shirt was a huge blow. 2 days later, the Saturday before a long weekend, he was unusually at home, working with the TV on. I placed a cup of coffee near his computer and casually asked, I haven't seen you wearing your favorite t-shirt this year. Even though he hadn't taken his eyes off the display when I put down his drink, at this question, the sound of him typing on the keyboard suddenly stopped. Then he said, Yeah, I'll wear it sometime. making a point of looking at me as he responded. That was unusual. For the past month since that payday, he had been distant, but now, when asked about his shirt, he was making eye contact. I looked for it but couldn't find it, I added, trying to gauge anything from his reaction. He replied, "Isn't it somewhere?" and then looked away, returning to his computer. His reaction made me feel suspicious. Despite mentioning his missing favorite shirt, he showed no signs of being troubled. Normally, in such situations, he would pretend to be troubled just to emphasize that I hadn't taken care of it properly, even if he didn't really need it. Last year, he kept complaining just because it hadn't dried due to the rain. Every change seemed suspicious when it came to him. I couldn't control myself. I had to keep digging until I got clear answers, even if it meant going too far. "You're off for a long weekend, right?" Even though we hadn't reconciled after our last fight, I couldn't help but ask something more intrusive. "Work from when?" "I don't know. There's a business trip. I might have a day off." Was this also a lie? It seemed like it. After all, for the past 15 years, he always took time off during the holidays. Emily's words crossed my mind. Going to Malibu, as she said, mentioned the prime grade steak. Of course, as she also said, the story I heard at the cafe started to feel real, and I felt a surge of anger welling up within me. Before I realized it, I had said it out loud. "Business trip? You mean you're going to Malibu?" Uttering a word that I hadn't asked about, he who had been looking at the screen froze. He slowly turned around, but his expression had changed from earlier. With a weary face, he squinted and glared at me. It was the exact same look he had during our fight on that payday. What the hell is going on? Really rummaging around our room pretending to look for clothes? He sighed heavily. Hearing his words, my lips quivered noticeably. Indeed, I had rummaged through the room, but I found nothing. I couldn't find the t-shirt. Yet despite that, he said it, rummaged through his room. He said so, which means if I had rummaged more, I would have found something that linked to Malibu. I still wanted to believe even while doubting. Emily says she saw it at the wine bar. You and another woman were planning a trip. The things we had built started to crumble away. Oh, is that so? I thought. At times like this, he would hardly make an excuse, but reality was different. He was not flustered at all. He turned away with a defiant look. So what's the point? I was even questioned in return. What does he want to hear? When I became speechless out of disbelief, he piled on words. Who do you think you are? I'm working hard to earn money, enough for a stay-at-home wife to live comfortably. He yelled at me loudly and my head started to ache. I placed a hand on my forehead and took a deep breath. I'm okay with getting a divorce, He uttered those few words. For the past 15 years, no matter what happened, no matter how hard it was, I had tried not to think about it. I was disappointed that he could say it with no hesitation. From that day, he continued to ignore me. Even worse, the moment he found out I knew it, he boldly started communicating right in front of me, like, "All right, I'll pick you up at 7 in the morning." The first time it happened, I was dumbfounded. Was he always like this? The person in front of me was a total stranger. As the long weekend and the day of his trip approached, I found myself in the car driven by Emily, silently witnessing his infidelity unfold before my eyes. "Sophie, did you get a shot of him putting his arm around her waist just now?" "Yeah. You should take as many photos as you can." "Okay." When I recounted my conversation with him on Saturday to Emily, she was furious and urged me to break up with such a foolish man. She also suggested that I take photos as proof of his cheating and claim for emotional damages. She spent her much-anticipated weekend for this very purpose. The woman he was cheating with was around her late 20s or early 30s with a slim figure and wearing revealing clothes. Did he have a thing for her long hair? He stroked her hair over and over with a gentle smile on his face. Since he left the house, I promptly followed and watched everything. From when he picked her up from her apartment, even when he stopped by a convenience store to buy breakfast together, to when they started walking arm in arm in front of the Monterey Bay Aquarium. Now, they just entered a hotel together. I took pictures of all of it with my phone, but each time I pressed the shutter, I pondered over what I was doing. I knew it, but seeing it with my own eyes made me really sad. But I didn't shed a tear. I just stared at his joyful face. That was my day. What do we do now? Shall we stay somewhere for the night? No, let's head back. It seemed she was planning to stay overnight, but I shook my head. I didn't want to waste the money I've saved by scrimping on such a thing. I thought our life as a couple had finally started after my in-laws had been placed in a nursing home. We hadn't been able to go on trips until now because we always took care of our parents first, but from now on, we wanted to create memories as a couple. The money I had planned to use for those times, I wonder if I just wasted 15 years. If I knew it would turn out like this, I wouldn't have married. If I knew I would go through this, I would have divorced him a long time ago. I shouldn't have had to endure and try so hard. Today, seeing his smile for the first time in a while, I wanted to redo those 15 years, though I wanted to cry. I couldn't help but keep sighing. She had been quietly listening, but suddenly she started the car engine and checked the time. What time is it now? After 3 o'clock. Then she made a call and smiled at me. Hey Sophie, let's move out right now. Ha! Hello, sorry to bother you during the long weekend. I appreciate your help. I was taken aback by her sudden proposal. She seemed determined to start something. Panicked, I shook my head at her while she was on the phone, but she ignored me and continued, saying, "It's all good." From that moment, Emily was full of energy. While driving, she used her car's navigation system to call various places and gather people to come to my house. About 3 hours later, we actually arrived home in the evening, about 2 hours after that, but within just 1 hour, all my belongings in the house were packed into cardboard boxes. It was truly unbelievable. I didn't want to talk about work since you didn't want to quit, Sophie, but I've transferred from a fashion magazine and now I'm the editor-in-chief of a local magazine. In the car, she made various calls to the moving company, real estate agency, and even to a lawyer who knows Donald. She expertly adjusted the schedule so that the Certus people's visiting times did not clash. I followed her instructions meticulously. Minute by minute, I packed only my valuables into a box, leaving the rest to be handled by the movers. The real estate agent introduced me to a house that could be moved into within a few days. Meanwhile, my belongings were sent to her house, and I ended up staying with her for a few days. After the truck packed with my things left, I was visited by a lawyer who provided advice on claiming alimony after divorce, guiding me towards the least burdensome method. I was amazed at how much could be accomplished in just a few hours. I knew she was a very proactive person from our time working together, but her efficiency was truly remarkable. However, as I looked around the now half-empty room, anxiety slowly began to creep in. He's definitely going to be mad. The cost of moving was surprisingly low. The studio apartment was affordable, and even the consultation with the lawyer was free, yet it still required money. I made these decisions without consulting him. I'm sure he'll be furious when he gets back from his trip. As I felt our relationship deteriorating rapidly, I became depressed. Then she slapped my back. Hey, being a homemaker is a respectable job too. The money you've saved from being frugal is also yours. Plus, it's his fault. He said he'd transfer the necessary money, right? So let's have him pay even for the cost of living on your own. After being strongly persuaded by her, I took one last look around the house. I remembered how in the early days I had found it difficult to rearrange things. Now, I realized I had placed my toner on the bathroom vanity without hesitation. The shoe rack was filled with my shoes. I had always seen myself as a maid, but maybe I had actually become part of the family. After imprinting the image of the home I had lived in for 15 years in my mind, I made up my mind and nodded vigorously at her. Then, on the last day of the long weekend, I left the house I had shared with him. I was still staying at Emily's place. "Where are you at?" I picked up the call from him with a trembling hand. He asked that with a grumpy voice. Without answering his question, I said the words Emily and I had decided on beforehand. "You said you were okay with a divorce, right? And that you would transfer the necessary money. I am divorcing you. Please provide for the costs of me living alone." "What? Stop talking nonsense and come back." He seemed to think this was just a runaway. I cut off his voice and spoke my final words. "Please have your new partner take care of your parents from now on. Thank you for 15 years. While he was still talking, I hung up. He called back several times, but I didn't pick up. I did feel guilty about how I ended things unilaterally like this, but looking back, I had always accepted his unilateral demands ever since we got married. So I tried to think it is fine, at least in the last moment. The following year was a whirlwind. I negotiated with him through a lawyer and finally secured a divorce with alimony and living expenses assured. Finding peace of mind was a struggle until I landed a job as an office clerk at a local factory, slowly building my life with my monthly salary. "Sophie, can you make the deadline this month?" "Yeah, I'll make it, but I think I'm going to barely make it by the deadline, so I don't have time to chat on the phone." All right, I'll go now. You have your piece this month too. 6 months ago, Emily, who manages our local magazine, added a new section about saving money, and as a frugal person, I've been given a chance to write a couple of pages there every month. I gave up on my dream to work in a publishing company. Her arrangements mean a lot to me. Now I'm a writer, but I have 15 years of experience in budgeting as a homemaker, and I want to share my experiences wholeheartedly. I was able to make a fresh start. Then an unexpected call came in. It's good to hear your voice. Sounds well. Mother-in-law. My mother-in-law called me from her nursing home. I had said my goodbyes to her before my divorce, but in that time, I couldn't talk with her well. I hadn't contacted her since the last time, so I was surprised that she called. After talking about my father-in-law's advanced dementia, she updated me on my ex-husband's situation. What? He broke up? Yes, that's the case. He's foolish, isn't he? Between us, he was dumped before the divorce was finalized. I see. Seems like his relationship with that woman has already ended. Well, that's expected, isn't it? Any young girl would run if she had to deal with taking care of seniors. So who is at the home now? Donald. He ended up leaving his big corporate job, but he's trying with his complaints. He's such a fool. He was able to work because of his wife supporting him behind. He still doesn't talk about his own infidelity. Sophie, breaking up with him was the right thing to do. My ex-husband hasn't changed, but it seems like he's struggling a bit. I found myself a bit relieved by hearing that. My usually stern mother-in-law chuckled and said, Sophie, thank you. I was planning to ask you to try again with him when I called, but your voice sounds so lively, so I decided not to ask. In the roughly 15 years we lived together, I'd never had such a long conversation like this with my mother-in-law. Our relationship wasn't bad, but it wasn't good either. I listened to her voice. I assumed this would be the last time I'd hear from her, and I savored every word. It turned out for the best, she said so sadly, and my tears welled up. It's been a year since my divorce. Everything has been going well, and I've managed to make a fresh start. However, I've always felt a lingering sense of regret. It's because I felt that I had wasted 15 years of my life. But then, with this phone call, my mother-in-law said it, thank you, and that she had planned to ask me to try again with her son. There's no chance of getting back together with my ex-husband, but hearing that from his mother made me genuinely happy. It felt like a validation of what I had done for those 15 years. I will never forget this phone call from her. Those 15 years were not wasted because now I believe that so.